This is our 4th week. We're still at it, working on peace. We are delving deep. And our first Sunday, we talked about Arun Gandhi sharing in his book, The Legacy of Love, the ideas that his grandfather taught. Now, I want you to know some places they're listed as 8 principles. Some places it's 5 principles. And some places it's 4 principles. So there you go. He had many principles, let's say it that way. And we are looking at the 5 that I have found most of the time in his writings. So the first one is love, the ability to love beyond judgment, the ability to see beyond judgment. And I love that song, the one about I Love Myself. Who is that by, Angela? Yes, I haven't heard that song in so many years. I love myself just because of the way I am. And were you taught not to love yourself? I was. That was like a little ego trip. And the truth is, if we don't love ourselves, we are not able to love others. Would you agree?
Yes.
And the depth of which we can love ourselves is the depth of which we can love another. So Mahatma Gandhi is teaching that one of the first principles is the ability to see beyond what we would call the outer and to love that spiritual energy within. The second one we talked about was respect. And I shared many stories about my growing up, about life, about respecting, even if we don't agree with someone. And that was challenging. Anyone find that challenging? I'm going to respect you. I really don't agree with you. I don't even know how I feel about you, but I respect you. And that is respecting the divine presence in all of life. I respect the daffodil and the dandelion. I mean, really, it's all good. It's all part of nature. It's all part of life. So we've been talking about love, respect, and then last week we went to understanding. The willingness to understand that someone thinks differently than we do. Now, that kind of brings my hand on my hip, because why would you think differently than I do? Because I'm enlightened, or I'm smart, or I have all these good ideas. And the willingness to understand that I'm not the only person on this planet that has a good idea. That there is a level playing field, and I just might admit that there is a willingness to understand each other. Now, last week I told my story about the guns on the wall. And I talked about Paul's guns on the wall when we first got together. I'd never even seen a real gun. We were both in our 40s, we had teenagers, and I was just sure that he was wrong and I was right. And he was convinced the other way around. And he was not taking down those guns on our bedroom wall. Now, can you imagine? Now, those guns were precious. He'd had guns since he was 7 years old. His mom gave him a pistol. He was on thousands of acres with sheep and bears and critters. It was for his safety. They had been his dad's guns, handed down to him. They were precious, and they were on the wall. And I could not convince him to take those guns down. Now, we had teenage boys in the house, and sometimes we weren't there. There'd be 10 football players in the house. Look at this. I even cut out newspaper articles to tell him how dangerous that was. And I finally realized he accepted all my foo-foo furniture and my glass table and my pink chairs. And he was right. He was right. I wasn't the one that was right.
Say that again.
Write that down, Paul.
37 years, yes. He was right. So I didn't say a word. I processed, did my prayer, did all my work, and went, okay, if I'm going to live with guns on the wall, okay. This man is precious to me. I accept. I don't have to agree. I accept. About a month later, I was on the phone. I was talking to a friend. He came up with a bucket of paint and a roller and a sheet, and he started to paint. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, we've been talking about painting this room. And within a week, the guns were down and never came up again. Now, what happened?
You were right.
I have lost control. And I love it. I was not right. We still have those guns. I don't actually know where they are, but we have them. They've moved with us to 3 houses, and they're still there. What's important is for me to remember they were important to him. And what's important to him needs to be important to me, whether I agree or grew up with guns or my mother or father would say no. Okay, breathe into that. What in your life has caused you to pause and say, am I willing to give up my judgment, my point of view, even if I don't agree? So I'd like you to think about something right now that's happened in your past or that's happening currently in your life. Now, Roland already asked me. He took me aside this morning. Roland's, he's always right on it. And he said, now, what about this? And what about that? And what about him? And what about... Everyone is a child of God. I don't agree with their actions. Now, today, we're moving beyond understanding, whew, big work. Open your heart to accepting our differences. Accepting our differences. Now, we can say, well, people around the world eat different foods, they wear different kinds of clothes, they speak different languages. I can accept that. But then we get to this, and we all have a different this. Would you agree? I can't go there. Victoria, don't ask me to go there. I can't accept that. Have you ever realized that someone accepted something about you that maybe they didn't agree with? Just a few. There are 4 of us in this room, and the rest of you are silent. What is it that says, remember we started with the Rumi quote, out beyond wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Because what appears to me to be wrong, if I'm in a different situation, I might see that differently. My mother might say, never pick up a gun. Paul's mother might say, pick up the gun. Who's right or wrong? We did the 6 and 9 last week. If we had a line and a circle, to me, I walk off the stage, it's a 6. Jan walks forward, it's a 9. We're coming from different directions. So as I accept something, I have to understand that I am accepting something I may not agree with. But I can accept this person is a divine being, And we are interrelated and interconnected. Yeah, Yui. Now, Paul and I had the opportunity to travel with Arun Gandhi to India. Talk about understanding and accepting a world I never would have known was happening. It was so challenging for me personally to see the chaos, to smell the smells, to see the filth, to see the poverty. And as Paul and I were talking in the car, and they are happy. And they are happy. We've never been a place in the world where people are happier. So who am I not to accept that they sleep on the street and they're happy? Who am I to say that is wrong? Generations of families sleeping on the street. I'll never forget being in a bus as we drove right past, and here were a husband and wife, and they had their little comforter, and they were spreading out their little mat, and they were laughing. And they had their little cooker behind them, and they were setting up their place for the evening. Who am I to say that is wrong? And then that's the little picture. When we get to big picture, when people are making decisions about other people's lives, who am I to say that is right or wrong? My mother used to say that's called playing God. My mother said that. She's telling me right now. So how do we move from this small, encapsulated belief system into a larger one? How do I accept things I've never understood, things I don't really compute, wouldn't work for me? How do I accept things that wouldn't work for me, but I can see they have value for someone else? Or maybe I can't even see the value in it. However, I trust that that is right for them. And I accept. Let's say it together. I accept. So I'm going to tell you about one of the times that was the most moving for me when we were in India. We had been there a couple of days. We had seen, felt, smelled. Ooh, Victoria wasn't doing very well, I have to admit. Whoa, this was way beyond what I had expected. Even though you watch the movies, even though you see the news, whoa, millions and millions and millions of people together. So the first day we were in Mumbai, and we went to the large official building where Mahatma Gandhi met with the English leaders. And it's a very imposing, big concrete building. Paul and I walked up the steps there were about 20 of us with Arun Gandhi, big doors. We walk in, we are led down the hall into this area where there are benches and there's a large window, and we sit on the benches, and there's a place where Mahatma Gandhi would have sat. People would have asked questions. People would have had discussions. And I'm sitting there going, I'm walking on the floor where Gandhi walked. I'm sitting in the area where Gandhi was sitting. I'm almost I was in awe, because there was an energy in that room, to me. Now, whether anyone else was feeling it, I was, ooh. I just sat there. How did I make it to this spot in the world, in my life? Oh, I get chills just thinking about it. So then we get up and we walk down a hall. We're being led by a guide. Now, Arun's friends with all the guides because, he takes many groups, and many of them, they weren't old enough to know grandfather, but they know Arun and they know all the teachings and everything. So we're walking down, and here's the library. And the library is bigger than this room, has hundreds, I think thousands of books. All the books that have ever been written about Mahatma Gandhi or that he had written. He wrote like over 100 books. And he wrote only when he was in prison. So he was in prison a lot. So I'm just in this room, and I'm feeling, whoa, the energy from the writings and the things. There were many of his mementos that were in that room. So then up the stairs we go. I'm going, oh my God, Gandhi went up these stairs. My feet are where Gandhi's feet went. We get upstairs. We walk down a hall. There's rooms to the left and the right. And then there's a room, like the middle of this room, and it's surrounded in glass. And they explained to us that this is the private room where Gandhi would spend the night when he was having meetings. So there was just a tiny bed, there was a spinning wheel, there was a desk, there were the 3 little monkeys, see no evil, hear no evil, on his desk. And I'm just standing there going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe it. So then the guide begins to tell us that this is where, in 1959, Martin Luther King came. Now, Martin Luther King had studied with his mentor, his professor, who had actually gone to India and lived with Gandhi. So here we are, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and I'm standing on that same little floor. I am totally amazed. And the guide explains to us that when Martin Luther King was there, everything's locked. You can't touch anything, of course. That they unlocked the door, they got permission to let Martin Luther King go in. Now, he had been studying with Gandhi, and he says, not one-on-one, by now Gandhi has passed away. He says, my teachings are Gandhi's teachings. Everything I teach is from Gandhi. You may not have known that civil rights was built on the teachings of Gandhi. Now, as they opened the door and they let Martin Luther King in for part of the day. Now, he had an entourage, his wife, his kids was with him. Nobody else got to go in the private room of Mahatma Gandhi's. So now it's getting late. It's 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock, it's 8 o'clock, they're ready to close, the kids are hungry, things are getting a little energy, and he said to the guard, can I stay here and sleep tonight? Well, that had never been done before, so up the echelons, they make calls, and he gets permission. He sleeps on the floor. I'm standing right there looking where this all occurred. They had a reception planned at the largest hotel in Mumbai, very exclusive. We walked through it. We didn't get to spend any time there. They had a large entourage of people coming to meet Martin Luther King, and he chose to sleep on the floor. Now, there was nowhere place for his family. His wife and his kids slept in the hall on the floor where I was standing. The next morning, he got up, twinkle in his eye, and he was thinking of the Salt March. And that's when he began to plan the March on Washington, D.C. Everything is connected. Everything is interrelated. You may remember John Lewis. John Lewis said, Gandhi freed me. I was beaten so many times. They didn't think I would live so many times. And Gandhi taught me nonviolence will overcome anger. And I have a quote here today from Jim Lawson. The goal was not changing the lunch counters or changing segregation. It was changing the hearts of the people who were sustaining and maintaining segregation. That's when change comes, winning them over, and only love can do that. And that's the power of nonviolence. And that's true of us, our hearts and our minds. Are we willing to be more than we were yesterday? Are we willing to be the change? Are we willing to shift from what I thought yesterday? Now, we live in a complicated world, and there is all of this going on out there. Would you agree? There's stuff. And we have the opportunity to react, respond, or to stay centered. People are saying things we agree with, we don't agree with. Okay. I can hold the energy of the divine because that's who I am. That's not work for me. That's who I am. That's who you are. That's who we are. We can't pretend that's not who we are. Anyone ever pretended? Yes. I am the only one who ever pretended that you weren't more than a human being. I am more than my humanity. That's a great part of me. I am more. I am a spiritual being having a human experience. So this is one of the quotes that Paul loved. I said to him last night, what is one of the things that Arun shared with us, but was powerful? It goes like this. This is from Mahatma Gandhi. I do not want my house to be walled in on all sides and my windows to be stuffed. I want the culture of all lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible, but I refuse to be blown off my feet by any. So most of us would think of windows. I was thinking today about windows. We have our windows closed, but he said stuffed. It's like nothing can get in. Are we open to receive new ways of thinking and feeling and sending love and empathy? That's the question. Am I willing to accept other people's differences? So we're going to close our eyes. We started a little late, so we're a little late on the clock, and it's okay. If you have anything in your lap, I just encourage you to set it aside so you can just be with this energy. You might have a picture in your mind of Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King, John Lewis, men who overcame prejudice, who overcame division for peace. Peacemakers. And you and I are peacemakers. That's why we're here today. In your own way, say to yourself, I am a peacemaker. I am. And in this moment, the willingness to look at something in my life, your life, that I am willing to accept, even if I don't agree. a person, a situation, there is a divine energy there. So we are on a journey of learning to love, respect, understand, and accept the things we don't agree with. We have our own truth and we stand in that. And yet we are part of a family of life. We are interrelated, interconnected, and we cannot deny that. So in the few moments of quiet, we just sit and feel that interconnection with those in the room, those beyond the walls, our family, our friends, people down the street, on the television. I accept our differences. And so we go forth today, knowing the work we have to do, step by step, thought by thought. We make our way, accepting the divine nature in us and in all. And so it is. Amen. Amen. I'm thinking of my friend.